what is happening with Iran, the supreme leader of Iran. What can you update us with?
We are going to fight, all of us, against this attack. And by the way, this is the reasonable scenario. We need to prepare. We need to prepare for a scenario where we have to deal with the Houthis, with Hezbollah, with the militias in Iraq and Iran. So yes, there is a buildup for a big war, which will hopefully not be too long and will be decisive and will bring this regime down.
What is happening in real time in Iran? Well, let's listen to Brigadier General Amir Avivi, who's an authority not only for the Israel Defense Force, but who has tremendous insight to what is happening in real time.
Okay, so let's zoom out if we can from what's happening in Gaza, a broader eye on the Middle East and what is happening with Iran. The supreme leader of Iran, of course, is making grand threats again. What can you update us with?
So we're in a moment where the U.S. is amassing its forces, and we hear that there are still forces on the way. We see the U.S. training around the clock and preparing. We see the forces equipping. We see ships that are deployed also to defend different areas, including Eilat and areas in Israel, American ships. Um, we see a diplomatic effort to build legitimacy and the challenge that the U.S. is facing when we see Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia putting a lot of pressure on the U.S. not to attack. And it's amazing to see that because Iran is a big threat. It's a big threat to all of them. And yet, when they look at it from an Islamistic point of view, they cannot tolerate the idea that a Christian power will come and bring down a Muslim government. It's not something they can accept, even if it's their enemies. And they rather see the regime weakened, but not a change of regime. And when they look at a change of regime, they're thinking two things. One, we're next. If the US changes the regime in Iran, who knows? Maybe the next president will change the regime in Saudi Arabia. Who knows what will happen? And the second thing is they're saying if there is a change of regime in Iran, Israel will get much, much, much stronger. Iran will be an ally of Israel and the West. And what does it mean about the importance of Saudi Arabia or Turkey? This alliance scares them. So they're not happy. And we are hoping that the US won't be really impacted by this pressure and the president will carry out, the attack. And there is a lot of planning. The planning is very, very complicated because it's not about planning how to attack a military site or a nuclear site. When you talk about change of regime, this is a completely different scenario. This is about talking symbols of attacking symbols of government. This is about how to weaponize the people. This is about media, about how to target the leadership, how to conduct a process of change of regime. It's very, very complicated, a lot of planning. And this is why it takes a lot of time. But it's taking time, and the Iranians are not sitting and waiting. They are training, they are preparing their ballistic missiles. They feel full of anger and revenge. They feel that the 12-day war has really impacted their, I would say their deterrence, looking not just regionally and globally, but also internally. They believe that this rise of the people is because they are perceived weak. And they think the way not to be perceived weak is to show strength, and showing strength is attacking. So instead of saying, okay, turns out that Israel and the US are really strong and resolute, maybe we should stay quiet for a few years, maybe we should wait. No, they're doing the opposite. They are behaving exactly like Pharaoh. No matter how many times, he got punished and how harsh it was, his heart just became, you know, more and more closed, and he was not willing to give up. And this is what's happening with the Iranian regime. They don't want to give up. They want revenge. They're really obsessed with this. And they are preparing all the militias. They're talking to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to the militias in Iraq. They are saying if we have to fight, yesterday Khamenei said, if we're going to war, this is a multi-front war. Don't think for a second that you are going to attack us again like the 12-day war, and it's only us. And there will be no Hezbollah or Houthis or militias in Iraq. No, we are going to fight, all of us, against this attack. And by the way, this is the reasonable scenario we need to prepare. We need to prepare for a scenario where we have to deal with the Houthis, with Hezbollah, with the militias in Iraq and Iran, but not alone. We'll do it with a US-led attack, again, providing that they don't attack first, so Israel doesn't need to attack preemptively before. So yes, there is a build-up for a big war, which will hopefully not be too long, and will be decisive, and will bring this regime down.
General, I want to propose a theory, and I'm curious your thoughts about this. So, as you mentioned, there's been criticism of Israel opening up the Rafah crossing. Do you think there's a possibility that potentially Israel is being accommodating and flexible in Rafah in order to buy some type of political capital to move things along in Iran, meaning give in a little bit with regards to Gaza in order to buy partnership with the US, for example, to have a more decisive approach to Iran?
Well, look, it's not that we changed something that was not written in the 20 points. In the 20 points in the agreement, this is the agreement. The agreement was that we get all the hostages, and of course, Hamas breached the agreement. They should have given us all of them, all the hostages, in 72 hours. It took months and months, and we were the ones at the end of the day who found Rani Gvili, and not Hamas. But the agreement is very clear. We get all the hostages. Then the Rafah crossing opens exactly as it did, only for people. Only very few can go in. Any amount can go out. And Hamas need to dismantle. And now, because they breached the agreement, instead of starting the clock of dismantling them after 72 hours, this clock is starting after many months. And obviously, Hamas has regrouped, and they are recruiting people, and they are producing capabilities. Not at the extent they did before, because at the end of the day, we are surrounding them, and their resources are limited. But they are strengthening themselves and producing rockets and capabilities, and obviously, this will be more challenging. So yes, this is taking more time, but at the end of the day, there will be a moment where if they don't lay down the weapons, the IDF will go in and finish the job. Um, to build the legitimacy, the US is giving them time, is showing that we're showing willingness to give them time to do it. But at the same time, we need this time because we have to deal with Iran first. And also, this approach that says, look, there are many proxies. You can fight Hezbollah and fight Hamas and then fight the Houthis. Let's go and destroy the source. The source is the Iranian regime.
If you can speculate on what a US attack could look like, would it be B-2s and bunker busters? Does Israel need the US to attack? Like, how much strategy and insight can you give us about what the attack would or could actually look like?
Moshe, I think that it's very, very hard to describe it because I think that it needs to be something very, very sophisticated. Um, if I would have to attack, I would make sure that there is a complete disconnection between the regime and the forces. You have to attack the communications, the TV, in a way that The regime cannot communicate with other areas in Iran. Of course, go after the leadership itself, after Khamenei and all the leadership. You have to really secure the people themselves. So you have to attack all the headquarters of the Revolutionary Guards, Basil, all of that. And you have to think how to mobilize the people and weaponize them and get them to really also participate, because the key isn't just about destroying the military or the nuclear or even the Revolutionary Guard. Is about mobilizing the Iranian people. And this is the big question. How do you mobilize the people who have witnessed, 60,000 people murdered and hundreds of thousands injured and incarcerated and so on? It's a big challenge, and they need to know that it's all out. As President Trump said, help is coming, and help needs to come and stay. It's not cannot be a short attack and that's it, and then start negotiating again. It needs to be really destroying this regime.
When it came to the nuclear sites, there was like this need for the US to use its bunker busters, its B-2s. In this final strike scenario on Iran, does Israel need the US?
So I think that, looking at the military side, the US is perfectly capable to deal with, the military sides, the nuclear sides, but I think Israel has a very important role here, providing intelligence, maybe participating with some capabilities, but also we have to remember we have the Houthis, we have Hezbollah, and I think we'll have to divide the attention and see how we deal with also dealing with the proxies and not just Iran. We saw the chief of intelligence in Washington. We saw the chief of staff in Washington. There are a lot of discussions, in-depth planning, and all of this with a clear Israeli message. We cannot have this regime anymore. I mean, Israel, will have to do whatever it needs, and we're still hoping and believing that the president will do the right thing and lead this attack, and not just having Israel dealing with this.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Amir. Thank you, first of all, for your service for the Israel Defense Force, your time there, the honors that you have received during your service in the Army, and your current position in helping the world appreciate and understand what we are up against. So this whole conversation now was spanning between what's happening in Iran and yet what's happening in Gaza. They are truly linked to each other, which we have known. It has not been a secret that Iran has been financing the Hamas. Iran has been financing the Houthis. Iran has been financing Hezbollah. Iran has been financing terrorism throughout the world. If we remember the bombing of the synagogue in Australia, when the Australian government was able to ascertain that this firebombing of the temple was a direct result that came out of Iran. And when we used to hear the rhetoric, globalize the Intifada, we just thought it as words, as rhetoric, globalizing the Intifada. They weren't just words. It was a call to action. It was a call to globalize this terrorism that we are faced. The world needs to wake up and understand that unless we do something now, decisive, to stop this Iranian jihadist radical regime now, we are going to suffer more and more. We have allowed them to go amok since 1979. We have allowed them to totally neglect their 90 million citizens and put all the resources in creating arms nuclear, conventional ICBMs, ballistic missiles. That's their whole existence, is what can we do to help destroy others, to destroy Israel and the West. And this is their whole mission statement. This is what they are all about. They have 90 million human beings that are suffering. There's a drought. The economy is tanking. But they don't care. It's all about what can we do to inflict death, pain, and suffering to the Jewish people, Israel, and the West. This is a real enemy. This is a real evil force. We know that the Torah and God is very compassionate. Yet, there is an enemy that in the Bible, it says you must eradicate them. We must eradicate any memory of them. That is when an enemy is so evil and so dark that the only remedy is total elimination. And that is in the Bible referred to as Amalek. Amalek, that's the name of the nation. They were the very first nation to attack the Israelites as they just left Egypt. And for no reason, baseless, absolutely no reason at all. The Israelites were just marching through the desert, heading to Mount Sinai. They didn't occupy the land. They didn't conquer the lands. They didn't do anything. They were just marching along. And they attacked them with baseless hatred. That type of evil, even God says, must be eradicated. We have that same enemy existing right now in Iran, referred to as the axis of evil. We have seen how they funded Hamas, and they funded the Houthis, they funded Hezbollah, and they funded terrorism throughout the world. This is a nation that's out to kill us. If we don't stop them now, it's only going to get worse later. And let's not be in the same position as we were prior to World War II, when Hitler was warning about making the world Judenrein, that to eradicate every Jew from the world, and we just thought it was just talk of some madman. This madman is Hitler. May his name be obliterated from all history. Has caused not only the 6 million Jews, but the 20 million others, the amounts of death and carnage that happened in World War II. We have come a long way since World War II. Haven't we learned a lesson from then? So we are at a watershed moment of opportunity in history where we can assist the 90 million Iranians who are living, like they say, in one big concentration camp, stripped of all human rights, stripped of all religious rights, living a hellish of a life under this regime. Don't we as humans have an obligation to 90 million innocent civilians who are suffering like that? In the last 3 weeks, haven't we witnessed the massacre of, they say it's up to 50,000 innocent Iranians? And some of us need to relate. And, even though we don't know these Iranians because they are far away from us, but look in the mirror, they look just like us. They are just as human as we are. They get up in the morning and they want to provide for their family. They're normal people, good people, kind people. They just want to live their life. And some 50,000 were massacred, and the world doesn't say boo. There's not one protest. Columbia University, we haven't heard a word coming out of their protesters, their activists, their professors. Not a word. None of the American universities have had encampments. There's no marching in the streets of London, Manchester. There's no marching in the streets of Amsterdam. in France, in Toronto, in Montreal, as we have seen during the Gaza war, when all of a sudden everyone seemed to be so concerned about the poor Palestinians, but they're not concerned about the poor Iranians? Not anything? No condemnation, no United Nations protests. Just 50,000 people gets annihilated, gets massacred, and doesn't even make it to the headlines? Is there something really wrong here? Yet during the Gaza war, every day there were protests, and the way they tore Israel down, the way they criticized Israel for trying to defend itself, trying to go after the combatants. This is what we're dealing with. And the same thing is with Gaza. Well, as Mr. Amir said, in Gaza, it's done. It's over. The Hamas were given a chance, the second phase, to disarm and leave. Or we know what else. We got nothing else to lose. We got all the hostages back. Even the final hostage, Hamas never turned him over. We, the Israeli army, found them. So now that Gaza is free from all Israelis, all the hostages, there's absolutely zero reason to not once and for all clean it up and finish it up and do the job and get it done. Evil must be eradicated, and eradicated now. As this famous saying of us sages, if not now, then when? So we are at watershed moments of history. We are hoping that the Iranian government gets toppled and a new democracy gets introduced. Crown Prince Palvani said that the very first thing he's going to do, if he becomes part of the next government, will renew the relations with Israel and America, reestablish diplomatic relations. Imagine what the world would look like when there's no longer a state sponsor of terrorism. The Houthis will be defunded, Hezbollah will be defunded, Hamas will be defunded, the terrorism throughout the world will be defunded. How much safer will the world be? How much safer will you and I be? Let's pray and we hope that Israel can finish the job in Gaza, and we can look forward to the rest of 2026 to be a year of peace, a year of God, a year of prayer, a year of unity. God bless you. God loves you.